Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. A video that, up until pretty recently, I wasn't actually even sure what I wanted to be. That is, of course, until I decided to make a poll on my channel, asking the viewers what they thought the next video should be, out of these 4 options you see now. And, well, to put it bluntly, Durkhan won in a landslide. So, that's right. Today I'm finally rescuing Dercan from White Orc by popular demand. But hang on, you may be asking. What's a Durkhan exactly? What even is a White Orc? And to that I say, go watch this video. Do it now. Okay, cool. We all caught up? Good. Now let's get down to business. Now, of course, the question remained. How? How would I actually get Durkhan off of White Orc? And to that end, I actually came up with a few answers before settling on a final design. The first, and perhaps wackiest of these, was to actually try and rescue him using, get this, a giant space ladder. Yes, really, I'm not even kidding. Marvel at the glory of the Ladder of Hope. Because, believe it or not, in fact, I'd actually seen somebody do this successfully before. Namely in this video, where Valentina is rescued from Tylo by simply grabbing onto a ladder as it passes overhead at orbital velocity. I don't know, grip strength of steel right there. Clearly she's been doing her pull-ups, alright? However, when I tried to apply this to White Orc, there were, issues, to say the least. The most glaring of which was the fact that you just orbit White Orc way too fast. Like, in order to actually rescue Durkhan, I'd have to pass just barely over the surface at the exact right moment, with basically no room for error whatsoever. Oh yeah, and there was also the fact that White Orc somehow transfers its rotation to your craft using some kind of arcane force field, meaning that as cool as this would have been, this approach was sadly out of the question. I also thought up an idea to use an overclocked command chair to just straight up fling a Kerbal into orbit with the eject function, but as it turns out, you can't actually overclock them at all. So, it seems, it was back to a conventional lander, which I really wasn't looking forward to building. At least until I remembered that Separatrons exist, with which I was able to make a new lander, the White Orc. I don't f***ing know, man. I should have called it Light Orc, because guess what? It's about to take an L. Which utilizes something I talked about back in the Plock video. The fact that Kerbals on ladders don't actually add mass to a vessel at all. And, well, with this approach, I was actually able to successfully escape during testing. Just, you know, ignore that. Now, it was just to actually get it to the surface, which already I can tell would be a Sisyphean task, but hey, it's definitely possible, alright? Anyways, how about we launch already? After the lander had been put into space and we'd actually warped to the transfer window, I then launched the crew consisting of Jebediah and, guess who, Dercan Kerman. That's right, he's back. One can only hope he won't immediately get PTSD the second he sees Eve out the window, though. Once the launches were complete, the transfer then commenced. Complete with excessive correction burns, because guess what, I really could not be bothered to actually make this efficient, and well, lo and behold, there it was, Eve. After reaching Eve and then subsequently snapping Rogan out of his PTSD, Jeb then placed the ship into a distant parking orbit, where it would be ready to retrieve Durkhan after he reached escape velocity from Widor. Meanwhile, the Lidor then made its way to White Orc itself, passed through the Lagosphere and then the Ergosphere, and began a series of burns until it reached a low orbit of about 1,500 meters above the surface. From there, once it was over the right spot, the engines were lit. Okay, so in anticipation of these lander shenanigans, I'd previously had Durkhan make a pilgrimage of several days and nights of agony to the equator where he stood and waits, and also, you know, wait, because gravity. Okay, man, this is not working. Everything has to be so precise, like it's not even funny. It's okay though, because guess what? I got a secret weapon. Better Time Warp. Which, in addition to allowing you to increase the maximum time warp settings, such as during interstellar voyages directly to the singularity of a black hole, also allows you to slow down time to about the pace it normally goes on a Monday morning. That is 10% normal speed, allowing for maneuvers that are much more precise than one could ever hope to make in the stock game. Okay, look, it was better than using Mech Jab, alright? Spare me. Armed with this newfound capability, I then went in for another few attempts. And, just like that, the Lidor had landed, almost right next to Durkhan, in fact. Ecstatic, he then made his way over, although rather sluggishly considering that he weighed over a ton. I then jettisoned the remaining fuel tanks, made sure not to switch to the original lander so I wouldn't just fall straight through the ground. True story. And it was time for liftoff. Durkan's savior, the Ladder of Hope V2 maybe, had arrived. However, despite the arrival of his savior, it almost seemed as if Durkhan didn't even want to be saved. Numerous times he refused to even get on the ladder, and every time I would actually start an ascent, he'd just slip off in less than 2 seconds, despite never slipping off even once in testing. Well, this doesn't bode well. Come on, Durkhan, you gotta work with me, man. The fact you can't even hold onto a ladder under 25 Gs of acceleration, ridiculous. What a loser. That was until, once again, I got the idea to use slow-mo time warp. Sorry, Kirby, you ain't going home. And, just like that, Durkhan had successfully escaped Widor. After then adjusting to the sudden and complete absence of gravity, he then slowed himself down a bit so he wouldn't leave the Eve system entirely. And meanwhile, back on the mothership, Jeb and Rogan did a few maneuvers to set up the final rendezvous, and only 150 days later, Durkhan was floating just outside the capsule's windows. So yeah, you know, there's this guy called Hef, and he makes shitty videos.
Hey, you guys got games on your phone?
Holy roly poly, it's Durkhan. What's the password, buddy?
Widor?
No.
Kerbal? I don't know. Jebediah?
Nope, keep going.
Banana?
Nah.
Aluminum?
Not even close.
Wallet? Whiskey, Tango, Foxtrot? Bagamizer?
What?
Fugoid? You're a fugoid. Encephalitis? No. Gobbledygook?
Nope.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism?
What does that even mean?
Look, man, why do we even have a password? You know who I am.
Bingo, come right in.
What? What was it?
Password.
I hate you.
Following Durkhan's rigorous security check, the ship then proceeded to leave Eve's sphere of influence entirely because, let's face it, I got way more fuel than I need, which means I can just go back to doing transfers the old-fashioned and super inefficient way. From there, it was then another 150-day jump through interplanetary space, until, at long last, Durkhan could see Kerbin looming before him. After then admiring it via EVA, he and the rest of the crew then prepared for re-entry. Until, a few minutes later, they found themselves drifting safely down to the surface by parachute. The capsule then touched down, and out came Durkhan, ecstatic at the idea he could actually jump again. And so am I, actually, at how relatively easy this ended up being compared to something like, you know, Super Eve or the first Super Tylo landing. Yeah, that's right, you thought I was gonna suffer? Guess what? You were wrong. This was way too easy.
That was easy.
That's right, take that, sadist crowd. I've done the impossible. I've actually become better at the game. The mere confines of the Kerbal system can no longer contain me. It's so stupid. I mean, I might also try and do the Jupiter 4 next, which was the second placed option though, because believe it or not, that's the one I actually wanted to win, so we'll see. Anyways, until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time, dweebs.